Hey guys, Mapletail here. Welcome to another OC lore video, the series where I go in depth about my characters of the Blue Kingdom story, which takes place in the world of Florin and beyond. All created by me just for funsies. Let's get into it. I talked about Avalon Swale in my holiday video and Destry Albertine when I drew dragons a couple weeks ago, and I decided to make this a bit more of an official series on the channel. I made a community post asking for help choosing what OC I'd draw next, by giving me a number between 1 and 542. I keep a chart of hair and eye colors as to keep my OCs looking varied, so I assigned everyone's numbers based on that. Feel free to leave a number suggestion in the comments, and maybe I'll draw that OC next time I feel like working on this series. The number that interested me the most that I received was 27, which is currently associated with Misty Winslow. I'd say about 99% of my OCs come entirely from my own head, be that awake or asleep, but Misty is in the 1%. She is very loosely inspired by one of my player character's kittens from the video game Cattails Become a Cat. The kittens are pretty blank slate and their appearances and names depend on you, so I didn't feel bad about being inspired by them. Anyways, Misty Winslow was born 5 years ago from what I consider the present day, in the forests of the central wood of Florin. She was raised by single mother Violet Winslow, and is a quadruplet with siblings Moth, Pod, and Petal. Misty and her family are Nekogen, cat people. In human form, they have cat ears and a tail, and they can transform into cats at will. Most of their race are big cats, but this family takes the form of domestic cats due to having more humans in their bloodline than most. Because of this, Violet had been rejected by the local pack of Nekogen of the Pinewood Forest as a child, and had instead been raised in the nearby Blue Kingdom by her human father. Upon her father's passing, she moved into an unclaimed stretch of woods to raise her own kids. When the siblings turned 5, Violet moved them to the savannah to the west of the woods, where a new pack had formed, the Avalon Pack. The Avalon Pack is different than most, as they are a group where people of all races live and work together. Misty and her family were a perfect fit. The kids were raised in part by many of the adults of the village. Misty was especially attached to their leader, Avalon Lightchaser, and really looked up to her. Avalon saw potential in the young girl and decided to train her to be leader one day. Misty was always pretty close with her family, but had a bit of a strained relationship with her sister Moth. It only worsened when they got older. Moth tended to be jealous of Misty, especially when it came to another person from the pack, Corey Giles. Corey had also been raised by the village like the quadruplets, as he and his brother Aiko were orphans. Corey was a wolfskin, a wolf person. His ambitious nature drove him closer to Misty than Moth, in hopes of gaining the title of leadership alongside her. When Misty turned 20, Avalon stepped down to let her take over, as Avalon had never really wanted to be the one in charge, even though she was the pack's founder, along with her partner Minku. Misty ended up choosing Corey as her mate, much to Moth's displeasure. She wasn't particularly in love with him, but he was interested and seemed to want to help her lead the pack. Things got messy in more ways than one. In the early days of Misty's leadership, the nearby pride of Nekogen lions, the Manketi Pride, caused many a problem. One of their members, Jera Stillwatcher, ran away in hopes of joining the Avalon Pack to be with her love, Petal. The pride's leader came to demand his daughter, Jera's, return, threatening to launch an attack if it didn't happen. Misty, with a heavy heart, was going to agree, as the risk to everyone else in the pack was too great. But Avalon's daughter, Road Lightchaser, who was also daughter to the pride's leader, unknown to him, snuck away to offer herself to the pride in Jera's place. This ended up causing a battle anyways, led by Misty. Thankfully, she succeeded, and the savannah was a safer place because of it. There was also the issue of Corey, though. He began to resent Misty for all the power she had in the pack. He assumed that becoming her partner meant he'd have just as much power as she had, but that wasn't really the case. In his frustration, he let his temper get the best of him and attacked Misty, probably hoping he could take the power he wanted by force. Pod pulled him off of Misty and was ready to defend her, but she stopped him. Many of the pack's members had now noticed the altercation by now, and Corey couldn't take the whole village on. There was no need to continue this fight. Misty exiled him as punishment for the attack, and she still carries a jagged scar on her arm to this day. Moth left the Avalon pack with Corey. She had largely distanced herself from everyone at this point, and wanted what Misty had had. Things were a bit tense in the pack for a while after that, but not long after, Misty realized she was pregnant, with twins no less. She was grateful that she hadn't been showing when Corey was still around. It was better that she did this without him. Several months later, she had 2 healthy babies. The first was Thorn Winslow. She was a wolf like her father, and the second was Thistle Winslow, a tiny blue kitten. Misty fell into a severe depression after their birth. Luckily, her remaining siblings, Pod and Petal, were a great help in taking care of the kids and of her. Eiko was there for them too, feeling terrible at the way his brother had treated her. Unfortunately, when the twins were 2, Corey discovered that Misty had had his children. He believed that Thorn and Thistle belonged with him, that they should have their father in their lives. With Moth's help, he stole them away in the night, taking them away from the savannah and their mother. Misty was beyond devastated, having no idea where her young children had disappeared to. She had recovered from her depression only to have to deal with the unthinkable. She searched endlessly for her kids, and leaned heavily on a newer member of the village during this difficult time, Julian, who she had grown increasingly close to since Corey's exile. A year passed. Misty and many of her pack were visiting the Blue Kingdom and its surrounding villages for the holiday season. Misty and the others were staying in the Pinewood pack, who had a much more accepting alpha now, Kato Larson, while Eiko went to the Oakleaf pack of Wolfskin, hoping to find Corey. That's when he discovered that his brother had been behind the disappearance of Thorn and Thistle. As the boys fought, Eiko revealed to the pack that the children were not Moth and Corey's, but that they had been kidnapped from their actual mother. Corey broke down, not wanting his children to grow up without their father like he had, believing that he and Eiko had been unwanted, and not being able to stand the thought of Thorn and Thistle thinking the same. The Wolf Alpha, Sasha Matthews, told Corey that that wasn't true. Their mother had wanted them, but had had to give them up for reasons she wouldn't reveal. Sasha then helped Eiko bring the kids to the Pine Forest, promising to deal with Moth and Corey accordingly. Eiko asked Sasha if she could tell him anything more about his mother, but she refused to share anything else. Eiko was overjoyed to reunite Thorn and Thistle with Misty, the greatest holiday gift she could have wished for. After years of trauma, she finally felt like everything would be okay. Misty would go on to take Julian as her partner, someone she actually loved and who loved her in return, and the two end up having another child called Bramble. And that's more or less what I've written for Misty, so I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching! I adore Misty, and it's been years since I've had a closer look at this part of the story, so it was fun to get reacquainted. Don't forget to leave me a number between 1 and 542, or you can also just suggest characters that I mention in these videos that aren't the main talking point. I hope you enjoyed this little look into my brain, and I'll see you next Thursday.